Hello, and welcome to the Product Launch Do's and Don'ts podcast, another exciting episode in our Product Launch series. Hear from Lynn Donaldson, recognized for having great success working with product launch teams in the pharmaceutical and medical devices industry, as well as her all-star cast of experts in their industry, as they come together to answer your questions and outline how to have a successful product launch. Listen to Lynn and the experts share their knowledge and expertise from their real-life examples to ensure your success. So if this is your first product launch, or if you've launched products in the past, you're sure to find great value.
Welcome. I'm Lynn Donaldson from Connect Strategic Solutions Group, and our focus is on helping mid-sized pharmaceutical and medical device companies to launch their products so that the patients can get the treatments that they actually need and their needs can be met. For this podcast today, we're taking a very different approach. Our focus is the US number one resource and drivers of the economy, entrepreneurs like myself and Debs. Today's podcast features our very special guest, Deb Simpson, Chairman, CEO, co-founder of C-Medics, Inc. Welcome, Debs.
Hi, I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Lynn.
Thank you. So just a little bit of background. Debs is an expert in directing both financial and marketing, strategic and developmental growth for medical device companies, startups. Deborah has been an integral part of 14 companies from startup to successful public offering, IPO, 4 and 10 acquisitions. Wow, that's an amazing achievement. Her roles range from CEO to CFO and COO and board member of more than $1 billion worth of M&A transactions with companies such as Adaptec, IPO, Argo Systems, instrumental in getting this sold to Boeing for over $1 billion, Auspex, IPO, and Calpana sold to Cisco for $250 million. Wow. I'm in awe, Debs, absolute awe, and I'm sure our listeners will be. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and it is my true honor to have you on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights from the perspective of being a serial entrepreneur yourself. Before we get started, could you possibly give a little bit of background about yourself? I've read your bio, but I'd like to hear from you a little bit about you.
Sure. As far as the acquisitions, that's not me. That's an incredible team. And I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, you have to surround yourself with the best, the brightest, and the smartest. And every one of those companies was the best and the brightest and the smartest, brilliant, brilliant people. And so I always say, what do? I said, I ask the right questions to get results and have my ideas go to other people so that they can be launched. I believe in doing nothing but having fun. And I can say being an entrepreneur is incredible fun. We have such a great time. We work around the clock. The days all run together. I don't have a problem with that because other than my grandkids and fishing in Alaska, those are my two other passions. It's just a part of me. It's what I do is helping entrepreneurs grow and, identifying opportunities that are making huge multiples for investors. And that's what I'm all about. I have had 21 different positions, of which 14 exits, and we've only lost 3 over the time. And one of them was an emotional decision that I lost. But anyhow, we can go into those kind of details later. But I think, your team, I had one investment group that I basically rejected because they said the technology is all that's important. And they were all run by PhDs. And I was on the board of director at NASA, the incubator for NASA.
Yeah.
And in that, we had a lot of PhDs. And it was very obvious that they didn't have the business skills that were needed to leverage a company. And so you really, I'm not an expert in anything other than, people and management and taking ideas and, driving it into incredible people, with energy and passion. So I'm very excited about talking today, Lynn.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I do agree with you about the team and surrounding yourself with people who are smart and smarter than you sometimes in terms of because they have skills that you don't. And I look for people who have the right skills that I don't have. If I took on the same people as me, we'd all be going in the same direction. There'd be no new innovative ideas and we probably wouldn't get things done. So I've got a quick question for you. Why do you think entrepreneurs fail?
That's a great question, Lynn. Entrepreneurs fail for many reasons. Everybody thinks it's because they run out of cash, and that's basically poor management because cash is king and you do need that cash. But you also, there's different kinds of companies. There's the companies that can drive to an enterprise level and have the ability to do that. And then there's the more regional type companies. And when I say regional, it's not mom and pop, but it's something that's, more focused on a much smaller market, more localized and more of a demand. Anyhow, they fail for money because they can't raise the money. And I think tenacity is probably the number one key is why I've been successful, because you have to understand as an entrepreneur, you're going to be kicked in the teeth. And I'm telling you, you're going to have this pit in your stomach. And I'm telling you, it's not pleasant. And you don't know if you're coming or going, and it hurts. And it's like, okay, and they say, some, recognized person does not understand your market. And they say, this is a piece of, garbage. This will never work. Well, that's happened over and over again. And those companies have turned to very successful exits. And so, you can't believe everyone and you can't get discouraged, because I can't tell you, if it was easy, everyone would be a billionaire, but it's not. It's painful. But if you don't have the number one feature, and that's tenacity, and I think that's the reason you have to be able to be, kicked in the teeth, told how ugly your baby is, and accept it and go on from there. So it's not easy, but I can say that once you get the entrepreneurial bug, you don't stop. I mean, it's been 30 years and I can't tell you how I have had, it's been 40 years. Oh boy, that tells you how old I am. And I've been taught from the best people in the world from Silicon Valley. I've worked with, top attorneys, Wilson, Venture Law, Fenwick & West, amazing, amazing people. You surround yourself. And why is Silicon Valley more successful in terms of failure rate? Is because I was a partner with the Brenner Group, and that was either, a CEO, COO, or CFO consulting. And Brenner Group basically was called by every venture people to get in there and consult with these groups to make sure they put the foundation in place for success. And they didn't just surround it with our group, they surround it with the best consultants in the world. And that's what it's all about. You've got to have those advisors in place. And I think passion, whatever you're doing, you have to be incredibly passionate about. In my current situation with the C-Medics can predict heart failure non-invasively 72 hours before it happens, Lynn. 72 hours in advance, non-invasively. It replaces arterial line, a Swan-Ganz catheter goes into the neck, into the heart. Or they have a cardio MEMS unit, which is a surgical implant. Okay, we do the same thing non-invasively. Most doctors actually say, you can't do that. But once they read our research, which is amazing institutions backed by Johns Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon, University of Michigan, and Drexel, it's accurate down to what's going on within each cell. And so from my perspective, it's not about a huge multiple because that comes. It's all about saving lives. Because I'm telling you, 500,000 people die every year of this. Okay. And I think you can probably feel my passion because it's there. And I can't tell you how excited I get to go to work every day with these amazing, team of professionals, which are at the top of their game. They're all A+ payers. They're all smarter than me. And in their area, I'm good in other areas, but we've got ourselves surrounded. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think, again, back to your team. And I don't know if I answered your question. Did I answer your question, Lynn?
That's fine. Yes, thank you. Totally agree with you it's about the patient. The reason I got into the pharmaceutical industry a long, long time ago was for the patients. If I can help one company launch their product, either medical device or pharmaceutical, so that a patient can use that product and benefit. And I used to work in oncology quite a lot as well. And that's a very rewarding area. When you see some of the advancements that have actually happened, and, we worked with the ALK gene, which is a biomarker, Xalkori, and it could predict or work in 80% of patients. Now, that's an amazing achievement. And I also know what you mean about being tenacious. I've had my own business 11 years, and you certainly do get kicked in the teeth. I've got the battle scars. And you have to get up and start your day again and think, today's a new day and let's get going. But I totally agree with you it's about the patients. And I know you and I have talked about the product you're from C-Medics, and I thought it was an amazing achievement, an amazing device. And obviously, as you know, very close to my heart with family members having died of heart attacks. So let's move on to what you are specifically looking for when you back entrepreneurs. What is it that you see?
I think if you talk from a technical aspect, passion. You got to see passion and devotion because it is a 7-day a week, around the clock kind of job.
Mhm.
And so I look for passion, and you got to have a solid base, and you have to have, quote unquote, an enterprise base. Okay. You don't want a localized type company that can get to, 50 or $100 million, which is very exciting and great business. Okay. But I'm more interested in taking companies to a much higher level.
You're looking for in entrepreneurs, you're looking for the passion. What else are you looking for?
Passion. And I think ego will kill you every time.
Mhm.
If the egos are out of control, frankly, Lynn, I did not want to take on this job as a CEO. It's only my third CEO time. I'm never with a medical device company, and I did not want to do it. I didn't want to do it because I had to work with doctors. Okay. And keep in mind, this does not apply to our doctors because I would not have taken on the job if they were. But doctors think they know everything, and their egos are often out of control, and they're not business people. And when I took on this job, that was my objection to becoming the CEO. And I taught, and technology said, no, these doctors aren't like that. Dr. Marco Griffa, he's all of 40 years old. He's a PhD in biomedical engineering because, get bored working 24 on, 24 off. And MD, brilliant man. And he's so practical and absolutely brilliant and fun. And I can say these people have all adopted to be a part of my family. So I think out of control egos are something that you have to look at. And I think another thing that's really important is when people say, my product will sell itself.
Oh, I've heard that one quite a few times.
Absolutely. And so when they say that, they don't understand the power of marketing. And no matter what your technology is, if you don't have strong, powerful marketing behind it, supporting it, in medical devices, it's more from a clinical, residential perspective, university perspective, absolutely brilliant people. But you have to have that.
The device is approved by the FDA.
Well, we have 4 approvals already. Okay. But what we're doing is when we went to the market, we figured out that we had to shrink our product down to a cell phone size. Okay. And that's a 2-year, process to go from, you're going from larger than a suitcase down to a cell phone size, and you have to do your integration, your EMR integration, and so that the doctor looks at it. And if I have my way, when you go into your doctor's office in the future, I truly believe you should have a C-Medix monitor exactly like a blood pressure cuff.
Yeah.
It should be monitored. It should be there. This is what our stroke volume is. This is what our fluid status. It rules out many of the tests that are incredibly expensive that are going to go down and they're going to come back negative. And so it's such an important statistic, and we're leading the charge in a very disruptive technology because you take a $28,000 unit and you're basically giving it away so that they can use it, and then it's all about the patients. Do we make money? Yes, we make a lot of money, but we make that off of disposables and revenue stream. We have also a data collection that we're putting in the new software. Because this is all about saving lives, and that data is going to save many, many lives in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I did the research when I first got to know you, and I thought it was an amazing technology. And obviously, I don't know as well as yourself or your doctors, but I thought it was an amazing technology when I was kind of reading through it and looking through it. So 9 out of 10 startups fail. Why have you particularly had an 80% success rate on your portfolio of companies?
And that's another great question. But the reality is I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. In fact, I prefer it. As a portfolio company kind of goes out of control, a lot of times I'll jump in for a couple of weeks, identify the issues. I think the biggest problem I've seen is, this is horrible to say, but lack of CEO competence, a big issue because they want to control everything. I have had medical devices that have done that. Long term, it's a disaster. Short term, it can work, but long term, it's a disaster.
And what do you mean control everything? Can you give a little bit more depth there?
As far as control, a dictator, you have to trust your people and surround yourself with those really great people, but you also have to trust their judgment. It may feel a little off to you, but they're the expert in, i.e. marketing, like you. They're the expert there, and they understand it inside and out, and you don't. But you learn from them. And I think another thing is learning every single day. You really have to adjust and learn. And from my perspective, I'm dyslexic. And so I learned very early, as early as second grade, that the only way I couldn't read things because the letters are all scrambled. And so I learned that I had to create a lot of friends who would tell me what the words were, and then I would just commit it to memory.
Yeah.
And so that's how I learned to read, by basically, attaching myself to other young kids. Well, what does that say? It says the. Well, I see it HTE. Okay, HTE is the. It's very backwards, but you learned, and I didn't even know I was dyslexic until I was, older. I just compensated, and learned from it.
That's
so
cool. Yeah, I'm slightly dyslexic with figures, usually phone numbers, but fortunately not in my accounts. But okay, I have another question about sort of the VC side. Do you think VCs are good or bad?
I've seen both. I've seen really high-end quality VCs living in Silicon Valley. I've seen some of the larger VCs, which I will not name, entrepreneurs going to those VCs and taking their idea, hiring their own team and stealing it regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your more colorful, and I don't do business with them. I have seen VCs who basically put an agreement together with a very inexperienced CEO. I think one of the key things that a venture person with somebody totally inexperienced will say is, let's just say it's John. John, I really have to have 2x my money. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
And well, of course, if you can't do that, what are we doing here? And then they'll put something called the liquidation preference of 2x. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've seen 3x, from inexperienced people who don't understand. And let me tell you what that means. What that means is, yes, find 2x for, $1 million or a couple $1 million. Who cares? Okay. However, what they'll do right before an IPO or an exit is they'll do what's called a mezzanine round. And that mezzanine round will be $50 or $100 million. Okay. Now, keep in mind that what that means, they'll carry all the terms of the previous investor.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is, say you do $100 million and you're selling the company for $250 million. Okay. What they do is they take 2x, that $100 million, the first $200 million plus your other people will get that off the top. Okay. And that's a trap that entrepreneurs fall in all the time. Okay. You do not want 2x. 1x is pretty much industry standard. They get their money back off the top and then they share equally. But now in that situation, you probably have 220 million going off the top to these preferred investors and leaving 30 million to share among your common shareholders. It's incredibly painful. So it's something that you really have to watch out for. I have met incredibly wonderful VCs also. Just trying to think. I guess Menlo was one of the really great ones. I mean, Integrity Plus. My mentor was Reed Dennis of IBP. He's in his 90s now. I haven't talked to him since he was 89. They call him the father of technology. He's the one that forced me to go into a CEO role from a CFO, COO role. And he said, I just can't find anybody that's smart enough that can think outside the box like you do. And so I want you to do this job. And I can tell you, going from a hindsight CFO to a CEO is painful because you're used to knowing everything because you're working in hindsight. You know what happened. You know what the plugs are. You know what's good. You know what's bad. As a CEO, you're visionary. It's a very difficult transition. And I hate to admit this, but I probably cried every week after, the advisors left thinking, oh, I'm never going to get this. But I'm glad I did because, now you kind of got a balance of all. And I don't think I've had more fun in my career. I should probably tell you that I am deemed to be disabled. Okay. And what does that mean? I was hit by a semi in, I think, 2003 and put in a wheelchair for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they told me I'd never get out of the wheelchair. Okay. And I've had 44 surgeries. I'm pretty much bionic. 18 inches of my spine is rebuilt. But the reality is I don't believe in medications. I don't believe in drugs. And they said I'd never get out of my wheelchair. And it took me 2 years. And I did. And now I kind of devote my life to, saving lives and really helping entrepreneurs because, that's what it's all about, helping each other and saving lives and making a difference, and that's my objective, after, I retire, if I can just say, I helped people, and, that's what it's all about. And entrepreneurs why is the U.S. a lead in entrepreneurs? Can I tell you a story?
Sure. I'd love to hear it.
I was in Hong Kong meeting with, a multi-billion-dollar, he ran a bunch of Hong Kong companies, a brilliant man. And I said to him, I don't understand. Why are your daughters, educating in the U.S.? And he just looked at me. He said, Chinese don't think outside the box. They don't think entrepreneurially. And I want my daughters to be very successful. And so they need to learn that entrepreneurial spirit. And the only place to learn that is in the United States. And I believe that. I believe that's the number one resource we have in the United States. We're a country of entrepreneurs. We're a country of people that make a difference in the world. I think sometimes we care too much, about other countries and people. But you know what? You save a life, nothing's more important. I mean, one of the deals that I did lose because of I would say, unethical venture capitalist who basically stole the company from a very inexperienced CEO. It was really sad because it was all about helping people. And he just wanted it all, great opportunity. He wanted it all. And he did it because, lack of experience with the CEO. I was having surgery at the time. I think that was probably my shoulder replacement. And he came back and said it was all my idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm in the hospital and I'm in surgery and, you're on medication for, 1 to 2 months after like that because they can't do the rehab because it's too painful without medication.
No.
And I think I got distracted there, but this is so fun.
That's great. I mean, I love hearing that. And I totally agree with you. You've got to find the people with ethics because entrepreneurs really do care. We talk about, and I'm going to slightly diverge as well. We talk about entrepreneurs and the scars that you get. I was growing really, really well as a company. And then something happened. I won't go into the details, but something happened and I didn't know what to do because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a visionary. My company was growing, then something happened and I didn't know what to do. And I started to spiral. And I sat there with my head in my hands saying to myself, I don't know what I need, but I need something. And it was actually down to my mindset, partially because I'd allowed it to encroach on my whole being because of what had happened. And it sounds like that CEO would probably have done the same thing. The ethics, the unethical nature of it all and what had happened. And so I ended up being coached on mindset. And now that's why I help others. That's the people side of my 3Ps, because I had to pull myself out of it with the help of a coach to try and help me get through that thing where people were being unethical, being greedy, not taking into account that we were doing a fantastic job in the company we were working with. The point is, it is so easy for people to be taken advantage of because we do care so much. That's why we become an entrepreneur, why we do what we do. And I was helping my clients. They were loving it. They loved our team. They loved us. I was practically in their office all the time. Do you know what I mean? But it's important to be ethical, I think, when you're talking to VCs and be very careful. What your message is just be a bit careful. And then the next bit of the equation is bootstrapping better? And if so, why?
If you could bootstrap, do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say having the investors in on your vision. Let me give you a couple of examples. One of the companies that I was managing, we put in an attorney on our board. And keep in mind, he came with several $1,000,000. And so this is in the 90s. So I was pretty inexperienced. And I believed that I had to listen to every single thing he said. As a result, he burned through, 10 million of my $26 million that I raised. And he was a really good guy, but he was an attorney who knew everything that wasn't embedded in our business and did not understand entrepreneurship. And I can't tell you how painful. And then there was another situation where an investor came in and he, was promising, $10, $20 million, et cetera. But you're going to change your business. Keep in mind, you can't insult these people because they are powerful and they're very smart. Okay. So you have to kind of drive it towards, their decision to go away. In this particular situation, he was with us all of 4 hours and he was changing our whole business. He was telling us that we had to fire all of our people. And he did not understand our business. Now, specifically, he was from another country. And so, that probably had an impact because, the US and the medical device market is very, very different. Yeah. And it is your, largest available market also. I've been in that situation many times where I've had to tell, and I've learned, keep in mind, a new entrepreneur that gets the money is going to thinks they have to listen to every single thing your venture people. But I'm telling you, you know your business. Okay. The entrepreneurs know their business. Okay. If they bounce their ideas off 3 or 4 people, other people, now keep in mind, just don't go with the entrepreneur. Well, I think I'm right. That's doesn't work. Okay. You go, I call up Lynn. Hey, Lynn, from a strategic marketing perspective, we're addressing, the clinics at the hospitals, what is your opinion? And, his opinion was you don't need any of those people. Okay. And so I would approach you and say, okay, am I making a right decision? Don't just jump at it. Trust your trusted advisors, the people that are brilliant. That's why Silicon Valley is so successful. Every one of those companies surrounded by probably 10 or 15 incredibly powerful, experienced executives that can identify. And they have all very different opinions. Another danger also is you have what I call onesies. What is a onesie? When you're dealing with angel investor groups, onesies are one time they've done it and they know the only way to make it successful. Now, keep in mind, in the 80s, I was a consultant to venture capital, okay, and I probably did, 50 startups. And I tell you, there's thousands of ways to do it. There is no one way. If you don't do it their way, you're going to fail because they're onesies and they only know one particular way and they don't have the visionary capacity to see that there's thousands and thousands of ways with absolutely brilliant people. And there is no right way. Okay. There's, many, many of these are very, very successful. So I think you asked me a question and I did want to elaborate a little bit on it is strategic planning. And I think that's where you come in.
Yeah.
Strategic planning. You don't want to launch a market with, a message. And people say, well, that's kind of a waste of time. Why do I need that? Because you need every one of your executives speaking the same language. Absolutely. And if you don't have that work done up front, now this is before you launch, you have to have that in place before you launch and you have to plan, strategize, understand, and more important, get the entire team's commitment, passion behind it to really drive it forward. Because, the passion of one person is never enough. You got to have yourself surrounded. I think I probably have 10 now, plus a lot of consultants, board advisors that are absolutely brilliant, that really help you start to get the company to really rock and roll. And I can't tell you, there is no multiple high. You don't need drugs. You don't need anything. You just need a business high. And, when those products and launches work and they're successful, I can say another strategy too, is if you don't have a medical device product, okay, you want to pre-sell. The most successful is AdaptTech. We launched the product. We had a 6-month backlog of orders before we launched the product. Now, keep in mind, that was backed by venture capital. That was actually my first one. And Larry Boucher, who was the CEO, I can't say much good about him. We formed Auspex on a napkin together. And, absolutely great people. But you were surrounded by the best. Kleiner Perkins was our funder. And I can't say enough good about that experience. And I learned so much from that experience. So, that planning and that strategic planning, and the message was always very, very clear. And Larry knew to, pull that in from a communication perspective, from an overall perspective. And I can't say enough good about him.
You raise a good point because especially, so just for any listeners that don't know, the reason you can't do back orders of anything on a medical device is because you cannot actually promote the product until it has FDA approval in any way, shape or form. But you can do the planning. And like you say, that's where we get in. Whereas when it's a non-medical product, you can get back orders or pre-orders. So that's just to explain. But we work with our companies sometimes 48 months before launch because we're working with it as soon as it comes through. If it's a drug product, it's from phase 2. And then the medical devices product, as it's gone through proof of concept. And it's important, like you say, to get to know, what are you going to say? Who are you going to say it to? How are you going to say it? And that strategy, just like you said, who do we need involved? So is it the nurses? Is it just the general practitioners or the PCPs? Who is going to use this product and how do we need to actually get that information through? I was actually in the UK, I was a drug sales rep, and part of my thing was going into hospitals. And I was very strategic how I approached it. And I also turned things on their head a lot. And I was the first one to get a formulary listing because I approached it strategically. Who do I need to contact in what order to make it work? And that's basically what it's all about in terms of getting your strategy right. You're so right. Getting the strategy right. What are your goals? What are your objectives? And we use the GHOST way: goals, objectives, strategy, tactics, and then the key activities. So you've got all your planning in place. And if I may, I'll give you an example of why this is also so important. During the pandemic, one of our companies was trying to launch a product. They couldn't get out to see their doctors, so they couldn't have face-to-face conversations, the medical affairs. They weren't promoting, just to be clear, they were not promoting. They were sharing their data only peer-to-peer, as they are allowed to do. But, so they couldn't get out to see anybody. But then they also hadn't obviously got their approval. And we did some scenario planning, which is also integral to doing a product launch. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if the other happens? And the what if happened. The FDA asked for more information, so their launch was delayed by 8 months. So I worked with the executive team to keep them at peak performance on a mindset wise. My team had already got the strategies worked out. What are we going to do? So it's a case of picking it off the shelf and taking it and working with it and running with it. That strategy is so important. Underestimating getting the right strategy will lead you to failure.
And a lot of entrepreneurs think, well, I don't need to go through that process because I know, and it's just not true. You need those brilliant marketing people because no matter what any business is, your marketing is your driver. I have helped split marketing in two. He had a very brilliant marketing person and he did amazing job with PR and Marcom, but he did not have a strategic brain. Mm-hmm. And so at that time I was, a work consultant with the CEO, and he said, I don't know what to do. I can't upset the technical community because he's too powerful. And I said, that's easy. I said, you just split marketing in two. You're like, well, that's never done. And I said, no, you need to understand that, you put it in two different VPs. The Marcom VP is not going to be upset because he doesn't understand strategy. And he knows he doesn't understand strategy. And so that's kind of thinking outside the box that you really need to do. And don't think about what everyone else does because you're an entrepreneur. You said you sold drugs in the UK. My niece works for GSK. And it's so funny because I think he was all of about 8. And he went to school. Now, what does your mommy do? And he says, she sells drugs. No explanation or anything. And to make a long story short, all the authorities show up at her doorstep. Her selling drugs, and she looked at him. No, I sell pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I should.
So, but just a little side note. So, my whole point is what you say, does make a huge difference, and it has to be a very level playing field for communications perspective.
It does. So. You're right, and I suppose I said it in jest, but I also sold medical devices. I actually sold heart pacemakers and trained cardiac technicians, so I did both sides of it. But my degree is pharmacology, so. But I loved when the products, when I could actually see the doctors would come back to me and say that product really works and it really helped so-and-so, really helped this patient. So it's just a different way of looking at it. What we do now, of course, is help the products get to market through working on their strategy and then the implementation plan. But we've got a little bit off track a little bit. So,
well, I think my whole point of all this is, whatever you do, don't give up.
No.
Because if the market is big enough, keep in mind, I'll tell you another example. I know we're all going off the meeting here, but I had a situation where incredible product to help cancer patients. Mm-hmm. It's basically a drain to carry all your tubes that everything's connected to when you do chemo. Brilliant woman. Her name is Cindy out of Sacramento, and Keeley Carrier, I think it's called. Anyhow, Cindy has an amazing product that helps people. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she put her time and energy into this cancer, to help cancer patients. But the reality is, once I dug into it, the market size is all of, $50 million. Mm-hmm. And so the reality is, who cares? Because the market size is just not big enough to allow for the penetration. And this is at a consumer level. And consumer products from a launching perspective, as you know, are very, very expensive. Think of Dexcom. Dexcom originally tried to launch through the doctors. Okay. Why did that not work? Okay. It didn't work because the doctors didn't care that the patients had to click themselves, 3 times a day. No. Okay. But the patients did. So they had to do both a pull and a pull strategy. Again, very, very expensive, but, their market cap is $50 billion today, greatly managed company. Z-Medics will be for heart failure what Dexcom is for diabetes. It's that important. Every time we prevent a cardiac event, we're preventing the actual damage to the heart that's caused by a heart attack. it's damage. And that's why they generally don't live. I think the average of 70% is no more than 10 years, and that's pretty scary.
Mm.
So anyhow, I guess my whole point is whatever you do as an entrepreneur, don't give up.
No.
As long as, but do analyze the market and make sure it's big enough. I mean, I stepped back from Cindy. She still had a good mom and pop type business. Okay. Does help people. It's very important. And I did spend a lot of time with her, and she had cancer 5 times. She's a brilliant woman. But the market, again, was not there to support any outside investment. You have to bootstrap that one.
Yeah.
And she's doing very well now. She didn't understand why she couldn't get investment dollars. And that's just because, the market is not big enough. Yeah.
Payback wouldn't have been enough. So you've had 3 failures out of 21 companies, but why? What's your secret sauce for the ones that didn't fail?
I think the ones that didn't fail, brilliant people, and teams. It's all about your team. I guess I strategically rejected a group that basically said your technology is all that matters. Because I imagine the consulting that came with that money was technology, and technology is never your driver. I mean, it's got to be absolutely key. Your market is your driver, and what the marketing will pay. I've had situations where I had an incompetent CEO tell me that, oh, we don't need to use reimbursement codes. We'll just build them ourselves. I'm serious. And anyhow, he was fired. But the reality is, that takes 3 to 5 years if you're lucky to get a reimbursement code. I have done it as part of I haven't done it, but the people that work with me have. And it's painful. It's very painful. It's very expensive. And there's no chance. I can't think of the right word. Confidence. There's no requirement that it's going to get approved. You don't know. You're dealing with the government, and as much as, our government officials are, awesome and into helping people, the reality is it doesn't work.
It's the bureaucracy of everything, isn't it? And then there are so many codes already.
Yes.
And having come from the UK, the US system is way too complicated. And I've been here 17 years and it's still way too complicated. But, sometimes I step back and look and think, why are you doing that? We've sort of talked obviously a little bit about marketing, but how important do you think marketing is to being successful, to your secret sauce?
I think marketing is the number one driver of everything. I truly believe that, because they say the product can sell itself. It's like, no, that's just, it's not. You have to have the strategic positioning, understanding the power of marketing communications, understanding that strategically you have to align correctly. Getting into hospitals is a nightmare, and it's not an easy task. Okay. So you have to come at it from many different angles. I'm proud to say that we are working with the veterans, because the veterans have a lot of heart failure. We're just starting. We're working on a letter of intent now. You can't do pre-sales, but you can do letters.
Yes.
And medical devices, your pre-sales are really letters of intent. If you can really do this, I want it. And like I said, I think we have, over $86 million worth of, I'd really like to have that. Now we're formalizing those LOIs because it's relatively new, but and that's done without marketing. Okay. Then a trade show. We did one trade show with our prototype just to see if it would work. And the first day, you got to understand, doctors are the most skeptical bunch on the planet. Okay. They have to be proven. And so the first day we gave them a little QR code and said, okay, read this tonight and come back. So the first day at the trade show is slow, small trade show, 5,000 people. And the next day our booth was swamped. We read the research. You really can do it. So we proved to them, that the product was acceptable. But then again, from a strategic perspective, we're just testing the market to make sure that, we were in the right space at the right time, and making sure we understand our competition, because anybody that sits back and don't understand that the competition is there to kill you, they are in every way. And so you have to be better, brighter, and smarter than they are, and, think ahead. And I think we've done that big time with Cemetics. A lot of that's experience, but most of it's the team. I mean, the planning of the team, the competency of the team. And there's nothing more powerful than working with people that are, in essence, like my family. I mean, they are brighter than me. They're smarter in their area, and I really care about them. And I think maybe that's being a female CEO, does a male CEO, say he cares about his people. I don't really know, but I can tell you, I really care about these people, and they know it. And they know I'll go to battle for them when they make bad decisions. I'm going to support them no matter what. Any bad decisions they want, and I will say, I'll support them. Okay. Behind the scenes, I'll tell them they were, full of it, but From an overall perspective, they know that I care about them. I'll support any decision they make. And I always say another thing about startups too is most people are afraid to make decisions.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think you've seen that a lot. 80% of your decisions will be right, 20% will be wrong. But I can tell you with the wrong decisions I've made, Lynn, I would say almost all of them turned out absolutely right.
Mm.
Okay. You can make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
And it's the failure to make decisions, okay, that'll stagnate a company and basically stop it in their tracks. I've seen companies spend 2 months worrying about the name of their company.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, the name is the company, but the marketing people are going to come in and they're going to have the right brand, and recognition. Our brand is cardio warning, because that's what we do. We provide 72 hours in advance before a cardiac event, a warning that'll tell you, get in there, get your medications changed, get your diuretics, do whatever you have to take and fix it before you have that damage to your heart.
And that makes sense. Cardio warning makes sense. You were right, just stepping back a bit to when you were doing the trade show and you were talking about competition. You'd be amazed actually how sometimes we actually have to say to some of our clients, you need to know what your competitors are doing. And they're like, no. And actually, you really do. And then they get sidebarred by the competition and they haven't actually looked at it. But you should be gathering insights all the time. That's the thing. Market's moving. What are the competitors doing? What are they saying? How are they saying it? Who's listening to them? And clinically, what are the challenges? If somebody's heard at a booth that this happens and then you hear the conversation and then an MSL or somebody goes out and they talk to the doctors and the doctor shares a concern, you've got to bring that back in because that concern could grow.
And keep in mind, they're there to kill you. I mean, it's almost like a war. I mean, they are there to beat you and, squish you into the ground. And if you don't recognize that, you're in trouble. I mean, every single thing from a competitive perspective is absolutely part of your business. And I like to get to know competitors because we're kind of in the same space, a different way they analyze the products. But, you meet some absolutely great people, and you share, and again, you surround yourself with all those people, and have a lot of friends. And I keep my friends for a lifetime. I have a lot of them. Again, you go back, the competitors are looking to kill you. And I don't even know how to say it any other way. They want to eat your lunch. And so we don't, want that to happen and, keeping on top of where they're at. And keep in mind, as superior technology, even though one of the top cardiac providers in the world told us that it would take 5 to 8 years to build our technology, that's how advanced it is. I'm more concerned about what they're doing today,
Yes.
and how they're doing it and what their future is. And how you can tell that by just watching, what's going on. But you're absolutely right about the competitive. I mean, that's why you're so good at what you do, Lynn. So yeah, keeping an eye on, what's out there, what they're doing. And another thing too is planning future products. A lot of entrepreneurs say, I'm going to launch this one product and it's the best thing in the whole world. The reality is you want to have a strategy for the next 3 or 4 products, which of course C-Medics has. Our first product is, in the hospital, but the second product is basically a piece of tape that every cardiac patient in the world should leave with, giving the doctor advance warning before that cardiac event. And that's my overall goal, is to get that out worldwide because it is so important to saving lives. But now, then we'll make a lot of money along the way, but that just happens. I was told in my 20s, don't worry about the money, worry about the opportunity and the passion, and make sure it checks all the boxes and the money will come. And that's exactly right. I mean, and now keep in mind, raising money is
scary.
A whole different ball game. It's difficult, it's stressful, it's time consuming. But if you're careful and don't be afraid to reject money too, Lynn. I have rejected money because it was just money. Okay. And just money doesn't work. Your investors come with incredible context, presence. One of the most brilliant people that we've been associated with is Steve Antaby. People know him as a Wall Street guru. Brilliant. Can't say enough good about Steve Antaby. Barry Dorfman is another one that helps us big time, as part of our team. These are high quality worldwide people, that I can get on the phone and say, hey, somebody wants to tell me to do this and I think it's wrong. I want your opinion. And you go from there.
Awesome. So it's about connections as well.
It's absolutely about connections, understanding your competition, and understand that you can't be an open book, with your competition.
No.
and a lot of people like to tell and talk about everything. Salespeople are, definitely often revealing too much information. So you kind of have to control, the new product launches with the key executives that know to keep their mouth shut. And not that I don't love the sales execs, because they're so fun and they do an amazing job. They're people, and they like to share everything, which is great. And so, from a management perspective, you do have to manage how that rolls out. But having 2 or 3 products that you've already done the research on, in other words, our home product, is it necessary? Absolutely. Is it needed? Absolutely. Will the patient accept it? Because the patient's not going to accept it. So you have to have something like a piece of tape that, is waterproof, goes in the shower. I mean, there's all kinds of, there's a lot more, as why people have you, because of products. They need that information to make sure that, everything is in place from a product perspective. And is the product demanded? Is it needed? Is it, those are all kinds of questions that you answer up front, which is why your marketing role from a strategic perspective is, it's not just needed, it's demanded.
Thank you. Yeah. And of course, one of the other things when you've got multiple products is making sure that you don't cannibalize your existing product, because specifically when you get products coming in behind, you have to make sure that it's not going to take your own market away from you, because people like to think, oh, we've done this, we can do that. And it's just a case of making sure that the two stand alone so that you don't end up cannibalizing your own market and confusing patients and doctors.
Well, and also, the hospital market is very different from the home health market. It's a different strategy. It's a different, as you helped teach me, Lynn, it's very different. And so you have to understand, costs to go in the home market are significantly higher. Now, even though our doctors still get paid daily for reimbursement codes, so they love it. That's not the point. The point is, making sure that the home market is aware of it, and they don't have to go, unless they need a shock to the heart. They don't need a pacemaker. They need, something to evaluate, what's going on in the body through biometric analysis. It's really important.
Yeah, I think it's amazing technology that you're coming out with. One final question, and it's not really Cedar, but it is. How important is mindset in the success of an entrepreneur?
Critical.
Yeah.
You've got to have the right mindset. You have to kind of be a sales exec in terms of you're used to taking rejection on a regular basis, not just once or twice, on a regular basis. I have said I have rejected money because it was just money. And do you have any idea how hard that is? Oh, gee, I can get a paycheck. Oh, if I hire this person, but you have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, understand that money's just not money. You develop it correctly, the money, and you work your butt off. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's not going to happen by itself. Did that answer your question? I don't know if it answered it or not.
It did. It did tremendously, and I totally agree with you. And some people go into being an entrepreneur because they think I can run my own hours, I can do whatever I want to do, and that's actually not the reality of it. You're on 100% of the time. Even when you're out and about, you're either taking phone calls or, in my case, putting something on social media or, constantly making sure that everything's all right. I don't think I've ever had a holiday in the last 11 years. Mind you, I didn't before when I worked, so it's no different, where I've not actually had my computer with me and had to do some work, because it's about serving the clients and making sure the patients get what they need at the end of the day. So, it's not for the faint-hearted.
That's kind of an understatement. Your skin has to be very, very thick.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have a lot of trusted advisors, because you may have the one like, I had recently that came in and told me to change all my business. He'd been with the company 4 hours. He didn't understand the market. He was from another country. He didn't get it. I couldn't basically tell him that, well, I did, but, he ended up
possible.
he ended up resigning, and it was the right thing. It was the right thing because we had a mismatch. And, your dictators that are your advisors are not often right. And understanding, that they're being dictators, they don't understand your business the way you do.
No.
And they're powerful people. So it's hard to say, you're full of it, Yeah. And especially coming from a woman, that's probably a disadvantage. I guess I've never been shy a day in my life. And it's all about, supporting and helping, the world, frankly, overall. Anyhow.
Thank you. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you've been very successful, and we appreciate you coming to talk to us today. It's given us an awful lot of food for thought, but is there anything last minute you want to say? Or
I think I'd like to say to all the entrepreneurs out there, don't give up. Because in America, we have the foundation for entrepreneurs. We have the foundation that changes the world. Okay. And our out of the box creative thinking is absolutely critical to the United States of America. And that's what we're all about, and we're about helping the world, not just the United States of America. And thank you for your time today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I would say go entrepreneurs, because we are there to change the world and to make a difference for humanity. So thank you so much, Lynn.
Thanks, Debs. So we hope you gained new insights and enjoyed the podcast. Feel free to share your thoughts, and please contact me at lynn@connectorstrategy.com. And it would be my pleasure to hear from you. Debs, again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here.
Okay. I'd like to add too that, don't forget, entrepreneurs, don't ever discount the value of Lynn's services and her planning, because to get successful, you need a Lynn Donaldson on your team.
Thank you, Debs. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for listening. There's a lot more great information to come, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned as we continue in this series. If you enjoyed the podcast today, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For more information, see our website, www.connectastrategy.com. That's www.connectastrategy.com. Or follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn.